Signore e signori, per Performance Strategies, Joe Owen.
Thank you very much. That's great. It's wonderful to be back this afternoon. I'm delighted to see that you've all come back as well. I was worried you'd all be leaving after lunch. So thank you very much for coming back. I hope we have a great afternoon as well. And actually, I really enjoyed that mind map. That was fantastic. You may not know that that mind map has been done in real time. It wasn't prepared beforehand. I can tell because he was picking up on things that I was saying that weren't prepared in the slides. So I think they deserve a big round of applause for the mind mapping. So can we show our appreciation for the mind map? Well done. That's great. Thank you very much. Absolutely brilliant stuff. So this afternoon, if we take stock of the day, I was saying in the morning, first session, we would learn about the essence of leadership as it is today. We then looked at the secret sauce, the magic ingredient of the very best leaders versus the merely very good. But now we're going to move on to what does it take to be a great leader in the new world of leadership. So if you remember, I set out that there have been 3 eras of leadership. Each era has addressed a different challenge. First era of leadership was addressing the challenge of efficiency and organization. It was an intellectual challenge. So you needed smart leaders, people with high IQ. That was the 19th century challenge. The 20th century challenge came about when workers became educated, and suddenly we had to treat workers not as units of production, but as real people. So as leaders, that changed the game completely. We needed not just smart leaders with high IQ, we needed leaders with high EQ, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. That got us through the 20th century. But leadership is undergoing a revolution that we are all encountering. And the revolution that we're now going through is a revolution of control. So why is control becoming harder? Because it should be becoming easier with all our technology support, but it's not. So leadership is becoming harder in terms of control for 3 or 4 reasons. First, the nature of the firm is changing. It's going from being the medieval walled city to being the open environment. We have to get things done through other organizations. We have to do it in partnership with other organizations that we can't control. If we go back to the days of Ford under Henry Ford, he owned the entire supply chain, going all the way back to the forests which provided the wood that they used in their cars in the 1920s. That's inconceivable with today's supply chains. Yeah, all of us work in just one bit of the supply chain. And it gets harder because those supply chains aren't local, they're global. So we're now having to get things done through people that we don't control, and that we often don't see, and we don't speak the same language as. This is tough. Okay? This is really tough. And to make it even harder, the people that we, in theory, have control over are getting smarter all the time. Who here manages professionals? Probably a lot of people here manage professionals. Let me see, how many people have to manage professionals? Okay. I think it may be more. Managing professionals? Okay. How many of you think it's easy? It's really tough. The problem with professionals is they're all smart. And in fact, they think they're smarter than you. And it's even possible they are smarter than you, so they resent being managed. They don't want to be managed. Okay? They want to be led, but they don't want to be managed. So how do you lead and manage people who don't want to be managed? Okay. loss of control. So everywhere we look, oh, and then organizations themselves, this is the fourth reason, are becoming even harder to control. We've gone from the traditional functional hierarchy, which is a bit like the army. You know, orders went down and information went back up. Very simple. It's not so simple now, is it? We live in a matrix. We live in the ambiguity of the matrix, where we have to say who really is in control of what? How do we make things happen? So suddenly, or slowly, there's been this revolution in leadership where the certainty and clarity of the past has been replaced by ambiguity and uncertainty. In the past, it was enough that we were the leader with the title, because people had to follow us. But we can no longer be the person that people have to follow, because people have choices. If they don't like you, they can go elsewhere. So we have to be the leader that people want to follow. So how can we be the leader that people want to follow? How can we get control? How can we make things happen through people that we don't have power over, who aren't like us, and we may not even see day to day? It is a huge, huge challenge. I'm going to suggest that at the very heart of this is the idea of becoming the influential leader. So, the old paradigm of power is being replaced by a new paradigm of influence. And how can we become that influential leader? So here there are two big ideas: persuasion and influence. And it's very easy to mix them up. They're not just big ideas, they're very confusing ideas. Let's see how different they are. So for instance, if I really learnt about persuasion, I used to be a salesman, incidentally. I was boasting over lunch that I became the best nappy salesman in Birmingham. Okay? That was my claim to fame. I loved selling. But I don't dare go back to Birmingham, because I was very good at persuading and useless at influencing. I persuaded a lot of chemist shops in Birmingham. Chemist shops in Birmingham are very small, to take huge quantities of Pampers. Vast, right? I was very good at persuasion. Basically, I stuffed the chemists full of Pampers. I don't go back to Birmingham now, because there isn't a single chemist there that will ever want to see me again, right? I've lost all influence. I've lost all influence there. So again, I could try and persuade you to buy my second-hand car for 2,000 euros. You'd drive it off, and after 200 meters, it would collapse, right? I've been very good at persuasion. But then what would happen when I then can come running after you and say, I tell you what, I'll make it up to you. I'll sell you this Rolex for $200. In fact, I'll sell you 2 Rolexes for $300, okay? I've lost all power of influence and persuasion, right? You won't believe anything I'm saying. So persuasion is very powerful, but it's a transaction. It's a one-off event. Influence is far more powerful. This is the gift that keeps on giving. It's about having people who want to follow you. It's the relationship. In sales terms, it's the difference between the transactional sale, knock and drop, make the sale, real estate agents, versus the relationship, where you keep on building that relationship and you have a client that keeps on coming back to you time and time again. So, what lies at the heart of influence? Well, we're going to look at influence in 3 perspectives today. How do you influence people? How do you influence decisions? And how do you influence whole organizations? In other words, how do you yourself become influential? How do you achieve things above and beyond your formal authority? Okay. And then we'll look at that in terms of how can you actually make change happen in an organization, because change is at the heart of leadership. So what lies behind influence? One big idea. The currency of leadership and the currency of influence comes down to one word: trust. Trust. If you can be the trusted leader, you're going to find yourself with huge power beyond your formal limits. Okay. So let's just take a moment and think about this in maybe have a conversation again for 3 or 4 minutes. I want you to think about, who are those people that you have trusted most? Who are those people that you've trusted most? And then the big question is, why do you trust them? What is it about them that makes you trust those people? Okay? So 3 minutes. Who do you trust and why do you trust those people? Off you go. In your small groups. That's right. Yeah, I'll take some still. Thank you. Sorry, I'm still. It's working? Yeah. All right, 1 minute to go. 1 minute. ready with... If you can be... I'd quite like to get rid of a couple of the books, if possible. So if there's a good answer, I'll... Yeah.
You tell me who are that.
All right, let's see where we've got to. Okay. So, what makes a trustworthy person? What makes a trustworthy person? I'm now determined to get rid of these books. I'm going to cost the publisher some money here. Please, you know, make the publisher spend some money on this. It'd be wonderful. Marcello, I'm sure you'll be happy with that. Right. So, good answers will get a book. So, what makes someone trustworthy? Italian is fine. I can hear what you're going to say. So, any offers? Yes. Here we go.
Actions, when somebody proves that he already did it.
Sorry, we'll wait for the microphone and then, say that again so everyone can hear. Yep. And then one at the back. Yep.
Okay, an action, when somebody proves that he already did it.
Absolutely. Okay, so being trusted is doing as you say. Really, really important. We're going to come on to that later. There's someone at the back as well, and then someone at the front here. Yes, thank you. So, yep.
Hello?
Yep.
Action should follow words. So your actions, whatever you say, you need to execute.
Yeah, whatever you say, you've got to execute. Now, you've both said something very similar at the front and the back. It's about actions. And sorry if we can have the microphone here for the next one, okay? So, you have to do as you say. This is all about credibility. But there's a catch here. There's a big catch. So, we will say something to our colleagues, such as, well, we'll try to do this. I'll see if it's possible. I will do my best. We then come back in 3 weeks' time and said, well, I tried. I saw if it was possible. I did my best, but of course, it's not possible. Okay? So in our words, we have done exactly as we said. The other person will think that we have completely broken our promises and we're utterly untrustworthy. Because what we say and what they hear are completely different things. We're saying, we'll try, we hope, we'll do our best. We're giving ourselves excuses for not doing. What the other person is hearing is, they'll do it. So, when it comes to doing what we say, there are two elements. First of all, of course, we've got to do it. But second, and perhaps even more important, we have to be crystal clear about what we are promising. So it is really important to have that difficult conversation early. It's better to have a difficult conversation at the outset about expectations and what can be done and what can't be done, than to have an even more difficult conversation at the end about why it couldn't be done. So do as you say, yes, because that's credibility, but really focus on what you are saying. And remember, what you say and what they hear are completely different. So have that difficult conversation early. Now, there was one here and somewhere here, and then one up there. Sorry, I'm not sure. Was there some... One at the back there, yeah, and if there's microphones there, that's great. And was there another one there? Yes, okay.
Pronto?
Thank you.
Sì, allora io credo che debba essere credibile il leader, cioè ciò che dice deve fare, deve mantenere le sue promesse.
Absolutely. So again, it's the same theme, keep your promises, but then be crystal clear about not what you think you're promising, but be crystal clear about what they think you are promising. Because what you think is irrelevant. It's what they think you are promising. Was there one here as well, if we can? Microphone. Sorry, okay. One here and then another here as well.
Poter contare sul fatto che se anche si entra in un diverbio di opinioni, comunque la relazione interpersonale resterà salva e questo genera fiducia e anche influenza.
Right, so relationships. We're now on to another bit of building trust. Relationships. Absolutely critical. So how do we build, what's the basis of a good relationship? In business, a good relationship often comes down to having shared values, shared goals, and a shared agenda. Shared values, shared goals, shared agenda. Because if you've got all those things in common, then it's very easy to build the relationship. If you haven't got those things in common, it's very, very difficult. Build the shared values. So, if you look at the literature, there are two forms of trust. There's affective trust, which is personal trust, and there's professional trust. So the professional trust is all about the credibility. The affective trust is personal. And this became very clear to me when I was, for my new book, Global Teams, I was interviewing an American executive who was working in the Middle East. And he said, it's a nightmare working here, because every time I go to a meeting, all these people just want to talk about life and families and cats. Why do they have to talk about all this stuff? I just want to get down to business. And what we're seeing is two different sorts of trust. The American is focusing on credibility and professional trust. The people in the Middle East are focusing on the personal trust. And their view is, why should I do business with someone I don't trust? Okay? And in an act of extreme leadership delegation, what this American has done is he's delegated all the talking and personal chit-chat to a Lebanese person who does all of that and just listens to people. That's his job. That's kind of slightly extreme version, but there we go. So two forms of trust, that personal and professional. Sorry, there's another point here. Yes. And if there's any other, I'll take them up. Yep. Yes, sir.
I risultati.
Results, yes, of course. You've got to get the results. If you don't get the results, forget it, all right?
No, posso avere fiducia in qualcuno che ha già avuto dei risultati?
Of course, yeah. So credibility, all right, so how else can you earn credibility? Right. Credibility comes from several sources. One is your track record. Now, again, if you work in a global world, that's tough because you go to a different country and nobody knows who you are, nobody knows your track record. Other forms of credibility. You can shortcut credibility to some extent. So if you work for McKinsey or Accenture, you suddenly find doors open. Right? And it's really interesting, actually. I know lots of very grand Accenture partners, ex-partners, who are used to all the doors opening for them. If they wanted to talk to someone, they'd be able to talk to them. They'd get through the door. I'm a partner, a senior partner at Accenture. Fine, come this way, let me talk to you. And then they leave Accenture. Okay? And they think they're very grand and important, and all the doors will open to them. And they say, hello, I'm so-and-so. Everyone goes, who? Bang. Right? So coming from, you can borrow credibility simply by being part of an organization which has that track record of delivering results. So it's not that you deliver the results, it's they go, I know that you stand for an organization which always delivers results. And of course, the other way of shortcutting to credibility is through qualifications. So when I go to my dentist, it's always a different dentist. I don't know why, they're always changing. Okay? But I go in there and I see all the certificates of, they've got all these dental degrees, and I go, fine. I will trust myself to this stranger because of all those degrees. Okay? I wouldn't trust myself to a mechanic with a digger and say, right, do you want to have a go at my teeth? No, it's the qualifications count. Right? So you can short-circuit your way in. That gets you through the door, but then you've got to start earning your personal trust as well. Okay? So that's good. Any others? Yes, there's one at the back there.
Credo che noi diamo fiducia a una persona, ad un leader o a una persona in generale quando capiamo che ci dice la verità nel bene e nel male, nel senso non è una persona che vediamo falsa o ruffiana che cerca in qualche modo di compiacerci, ma se lo sentiamo onesto, vero, che ci dice la verità, le cose come sono e non ha paura di dire qualcosa che vada anche contro di noi.
Yeah, this is a fantastic point. So I haven't been giving books away. Sorry, that's definitely a book. Off we go. That's great. Well done. Thank you very much. So sorry, my apologies to the other people. I wasn't concentrating. And if you feel that you've merited a book, then come and beat me up, and I'll sort of, surrender a book to you. Okay, good. Difficult. Yeah. So you've got to be authentic. Okay. It's wonderful. I was speaking to one chief exec, and he said, "Yeah, that I really trust this person that I've got working for me in Australia. He has bad clothes, bad hair, and bad jokes, but he is so honest. I just totally trust him." Okay, so be authentic, and you can get away with all sorts of things. But you've got to be honest, and you've got to do a lot of other things like deliver the results. You've also got to have those difficult conversations. So there was a question here about at what point, sorry, a question came through on the WhatsApp, saying at what point should we be friendly or not friendly with our staff? Okay, that's an interesting question. Friendliness versus trust. I'm going to suggest that popularity is a really dangerous thing to seek. The currency of leadership isn't popularity, it is trust. Popularity and friendship is the path to weakness. Because when you seek friendship and popularity, that's when you start making compromises. That's when you start saying, well, I don't want to offend this person, so I'm not going to have the difficult conversation about their performance. And of course, I'll accept the excuses about why things can't be done. And I won't push this person too hard because it wouldn't be nice. Oh, and they want a pay rise. Well, that's fine. We'll find a pay rise for them. So you become popular, but you become weak. Whereas trust is about gaining respect. So it's about having those difficult conversations about performance and about expectations. It's a difficult but constructive and positive conversation. So it's not saying you're failing and no use, because it's a difficult conversation, it's just an unpleasant conversation. It's saying, look, if you want to succeed in this role, let's talk about what it's going to take and what you are going to have to do. It's a difficult conversation, but it's a conversation which, if done well, absolutely builds respect. And respect lasts a lot longer than friendship. So this is where we now come back to the godfather of 21st century leadership. Who did I say the godfather of 21st century leadership is? Italy's very own Machiavelli, right? Of course. What did he write? He wrote, "It is better for a leader to be feared than loved, because men are fickle." He didn't write about women. He just said men are weak and fickle, and they will follow you for as long as you have something more to give. All right? But then they will be disloyal. If someone can give them more, they will follow that leader. Whereas fear, you have to be cruel to be kind. And he suggested a couple of executions to keep the public in order. Now, so part of that is very 16th century leadership. The second part, the executions. But the bit that he was on the money on was that popularity is the path to weakness. Okay? So the alternative currency isn't fear, it's respect, and it's the respect that comes from trust. Okay. Any more? Actually, you're brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant, all of you, because you have preempted the essence of trust. So here is what I had cooked before, and you will see that you had already worked it out. okay? There is a trust formula, right? And this is it. How do you build trust, okay? Trust is a product of this. T is for trust, and there are two ways you build it, through intimacy and credibility. Intimacy, we talked about. How do you have common values, a common agenda, a common mission that you can all come together behind, okay? That's really important. Find those common values, find those common experiences. Common experiences. Okay? Second, you build it through credibility. We've talked a lot about credibility. Get the results. Do as you say. Really focus on what you are promising. If you do those two things, you are building trust. So what is this R thing that apparently destroys trust? Well, think about it. It's risk. Risk is the kryptonite of trust. So for instance, if I go outside, I might ask someone for the way to the post office and I might trust their reply. Fine. They may or may not give me the right directions, but hey, it's a low-risk thing, okay? Equally, I could go outside and I could say to a stranger, oh, will you look after all of my life savings? If I did that, I'd be pretty stupid, okay? So there's different levels of risk. We trust people less when the risk is higher. So how do we handle risk? How do we handle risk? I'm going to suggest there are two ways we can handle risk. There's the obvious way. We reduce risk. We're nice leaders, so we try to find ways of reducing and mitigating the risk. Incidentally, what is the risk? We talked about it this morning. So let's take any big decision. What's the risk of making some big new investment? Okay, what are the risks? Well, you've probably all been in that situation where you try and analyze the risks. And you'll come up with this risk log, right? And you'll come up with mitigating actions about what we can do to mitigate those risks. And that's fine, right? You know, there's a risk that suppliers won't deliver on time, there's a risk of cost overruns, there's a risk on the specifications, there's all sorts of logical risks. And it misses the really important risks, which are personal. How is this going to affect me? Because it may be a great idea in theory, but if this new idea of yours means that I'm going to have a new boss, and I need new skills, and I'm going to have new performance metrics, I'm going to be really scared about that, and I'm going to find all sorts of logical and rational reasons why I'm going to sabotage your new idea. So risk isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. IQ, EQ. And a good leader will deal with both. Now, that's the logical side. Deal with the risk. Reduce the risk. There's another way of addressing risk, which is this. Raise the risk. What? Are you crazy? Raise the level of risk? Absolutely. Raise the risk of all the other alternatives. Raise the risk of doing nothing. Okay. So people may say, well, I don't really want to go for this large change program. But if the choice is, well, we can either go for this large change program or we're all out of business, suddenly people go, you know what? This large change program suddenly looks very exciting. Okay? So raise the risk of the alternative. Okay? Because risk isn't absolute, it's relative and it's personal. Okay, great. So, I said that trust is absolutely the heart of influence. And if that's all you take away from this session, you're well ahead of the game. But now let's go into the practice of how do we use trust and how do we use influence to influence people, to influence decisions, and to influence a whole organization. Okay. And actually, let's start with a bit of a vote here. So, sorry, you'll see that later. So how many people here I want to see hands. How many people here think they're paid too much? Okay, right. How many people here think they are promoted too far? Too far? Too high? Right, okay. How many people think they get too much praise? Okay. How many people think they work too little? Okay. Of course not. Of course. Now, the sad truth is, we work in a world where actually we're not recognized enough, and we're probably not paid enough, and we're not praised enough, and we have to work too hard. That is just how it is. And it's really, really frustrating to us. And actually, this ties in with what we find elsewhere. Actually, let's just see what we've got. So this is how people think of themselves. Look at this. These are smart kids, University of Nebraska faculty. These are really smart people, professors. Most of them thought they were the very best, okay, of course. Stanford MBA students. 87% thought they were better than average. That is statistically impossible, but emotionally inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable. SAT exams, I love this. 25% of the kids thought they were in the top 1% of being able to get on with other people. And drivers, again, you see the same thing, right? It's human nature. It's human nature, this. So let's go through this again, all right? How do you relate? How are you relative to your peers on any of these? How many people think they're below average compared to their peers on any of this, right? How many people think they're at least as good, if not better than their peers on this, okay? Well, at least one. Come on. Okay. Look, so this is natural. Let's start with this as the reality of people want to be recognized. And we want to think that we are good. We want to be praised. And yet we're not. So the very starting point of influencing other people is simple. Recognize them. Flatter them. So what happens in this cruel and heartless world where nobody recognizes you, and then suddenly someone, somewhere in your organization appears to recognize your brilliance, recognize your humanity, recognize your excellence, recognize your hard work. What do you think of such a person? Do you think they're stupid? No. You think that person is pretty smart. You like that person. Okay. So, flatter people. Flatter. All the academic research shows that there is no point at which flattery becomes counterproductive. Literally, there is no point at which it becomes counterproductive. So how do you flatter? Okay. How do you flatter and how do you build influence? Now, this is the leading edge of the new world of management. So I deliberately have gone to the extremes to find out, well, how do you really influence people when you have no power? And I thought, what's the most extreme example? Now, as it happens, I'm very lucky. I know some people who have worked for MI6, Secret Intelligence. That's the spying agency that the Brits have. And these are the naughty boys and girls. There are good boys and girls who do the counterintelligence and try to find other spies. MI6 are the naughty boys and girls because they go out and try, basically their job is to get foreigners to betray their country. Okay? So how do you do that? How do you do that? It's impossible, isn't it? Well, there are some approaches such as bribery, blackmail, sex. The trouble with all of those things is that they are not very sustainable. Okay, you keep it going for a bit, but you've got a very unpredictable relationship. So what they want to do is create a very sustainable relationship. So let me tell you a story about one of them. And I'm going to ask you what you'd do in his situation. So he was a relatively new agent, and he was sent to Central Africa, and his job was actually to bring a warlord to the peace table. Okay, kind of interesting. So he set off in his Land Rover into the middle of nowhere. Every kilometer that he passed, he realized he was getting 1 kilometer further away from help, and 1 kilometer closer to danger. And he was thinking, why am I doing this? I'm crazy. I'm going to get killed. But he kept going. Eventually, he tracked down the warlord. And the warlord greets him. He says, "So, Whitey, can you milk cows?" And he goes, "No." So the warlord says, "Right, fuck off." Okay? So he did. He drove back, and he learned how to milk cows, thinking, this wasn't in the training manual for MI6, why not? Anyway, he learned how to milk cows. He then drove back again, thinking, I'm still crazy. Got to the warlord. The warlord says, "So, Whitey, can you milk cows yet?" He says, "Yes, I can." So he milked cow. They drank the unpasteurized, unhomogenized milk, had a great time. They got to know each other, built the trust, the values alignment, okay? And one night, he was sleeping on the ground, and suddenly the warlord comes along, kicks him like that, and the warlord's got a Kalashnikov in one hand and a walkie-talkie in the other hand. And he says, "Whitey, should I send the boys in?" What he meant by that was he's about to send his troops in to do another round of genocide and ethnic cleansing. So there you are. It's still nighttime. You've just been kicked by the warlord, Kalashnikov, walkie-talkie, and he's saying, "So, do I send the boys in?" You've got a massacre on your hands. What are you going to do? You've got 3 minutes to decide. Amongst yourselves, what are you going to do? How are you going to reply? Think of the principles you've got there. We talked about them. Okay? Off you go. 3 minutes to stop the massacre. Discuss amongst yourselves. Ah. All right, 1 minute. Okay, let's see where we've got to. And first of all, my apologies. I managed to get way ahead in this presentation. So if you've worked out the answer, you've done exceptionally well. This is the slide that was meant to help you. So this is the influencing people section. So, right. The other point to make is that if you've reached the answer, you've done exceptionally well. But if you took 3 minutes over it, he'd have got onto his walkie-talkie and he would have sent the boys in. So he didn't have 3 minutes. He had seconds to figure out what to do. Do we have any offers on what you might try to do with this warlord with the walkie-talkie and the Kalashnikov? Yes, there's one at the back. If the microphone can get over there, and then one down here. In fact, if the microphone's there first, we'll take this one first, then that one, and then this one. Okay, yeah. Yes, please, madam.
Io direi che userei la lusinga dicendo al signore della guerra che probabilmente tutti possono distruggere la città, ma pochi possono conquistarla senza distruggerla.
Okay, I like that. So, get him on side, give him an alternative. Very smart. Don't know if it'd work, but it's a good try. Okay, we've got, one here. There is one at the back as well, if we can get towards the back. And then, sorry, if the other microphone can, the other microphone can come down there. That's great. Yeah, please.
Io? Ok.
Yeah.
Ma io semplicemente direi che innanzitutto non sono io a dover decidere, ok, ma è diciamo questo leader, questo signore della guerra. E visto che non posso decidere, al massimo posso dare qualche suggerimento cercando di ottenere un certo risultato, cioè mi porrei umanamente l'obiettivo di non far sterminare tutte queste persone. Pertanto farei delle domande cercando di far capire a questo leader, a questo signore della guerra, quali sono gli effettivi vantaggi e gli svantaggi, diciamo, di un'azione così drastica, e cercherei di indurre una considerazione sul fatto che non faccia questo tipo di azioni. Quindi andrei in questa direzione, insomma.
Yeah, okay. So the trick here, and sorry, there's one at the back if you can get towards the back, and there's one here at the front as well. So there's a give him an alternative, yeah.
Io la giocherei tutta sulla relazione che ho costruito con il Warlord e lo inviterei a mungere un'altra vacca insieme prima di prendere decisioni così affrettate.
Okay, so try and buy time. Buying time helps, at least, certainly if you've just been woken up, you need to get some time where you wake up and start your brain thinking. Yes, one at the back?
Gli direi semplicemente, fai ciò che è giusto.
Do the right thing. Right, boys, in you go. All right, there's one at the back and one here. It's wherever the microphones can get to. Where's the microphone? Over there. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and then at the back there. Okay,
Bene.
First one here.
Bene. Io cercherei di dargli una visione, quindi gli chiederei per che cosa vorrà essere ricordato. Se vuole essere ricordato come il sanguinario o se vuole essere ricordato come una persona che può fare un atto che rimarrà nella storia.
Okay, so again, give him a sense of he could be even greater if he did something different. Quite a creative alternative. We're going to take one at the back here, and then I think just one or two down here, and then we'll see what we come to. There's a lady at the back who's been working hard to get attention. I congratulate her. So if we can get the microphone up there, please.
Io ricostruirei la fiducia dicendo mungiamo la mucca insieme, beviamo un bicchiere di latte e parliamo insieme di questa cosa.
Great. Okay, so again, just take him off into a different world altogether. Yeah?
Salve, io gli chiederei semplicemente, quando li avrai ammazzati tutti, su chi comanderai, a chi dimostrerai quello che vuoi dimostrare?
Absolutely. Okay. So again, there's quite a lot of common themes in here about showing him an alternative or helping him discover that there is a better alternative. Okay. Was there one more? There was one. We'll take. There's one at the back there. I'm sorry. And then we'll call it.
Io cercherei di uccidere il signore della guerra, perché penso di essere più forte di lui.
Yes. I love it. Great. I was hoping we would have James Bond here. We do. You know, it's like, shoot the Lord. And actually, you know what happens next? You then go back to town, change into your dinner jacket, win the warlord's money at the gambling table and win the warlord's girl. I can see the script. I love it. That's a book, if there was ever a book. Well done. Great. I love it. Thank you. All right. Look, I'll tell you. All I can do is I can tell you what happened and what he did. Okay. Looking at some of these things up here. First thing he did, build rapport, bizarrely. So there he was, he'd been kicked away. He said, you know what? He said, if I was in your shoes, that's exactly what I'd want to do. What? Okay. Build rapport. Don't argue, because if you argue, he's going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. Right, boys, in you go. Right? Build rapport. If I was in your shoes, that's exactly what I'd want to do. And then he built on it. You know, those people, they're so awful, da, 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 da. Repeating back to him all his prejudices. That's flattery. High-order flattery. Yeah, right. I've got someone who understands me now. Whitey here understands just what I'm up against. This bloke's sensible, right? So now he's ready to listen. Because he wasn't ready to listen when it was like, do I send the boys in? He just wanted yes or no, or a fight. Okay? But now he's ready to listen because this person understands him. Build rapport, big thing. Okay? And built on a lot of listening. A lot of listening, because this secret agent understood what the prejudices of that warlord were. Okay? And then it's like, then the turn. He said, of course I'd like to do that. But you know what? There's this wars tribunal. They're getting really uppity, aren't they? They're a right pain, aren't they? Yeah, they're a right pain. And you know, everything we've been hearing is they just want one little trigger, and you know what's going to happen? It's going to be the SAS, it's going to be the Marines, it's going to be the Americans, they're going to be all over you, and it's end of the game. What a nightmare. I mean, it's so unfair. It's ridiculous, isn't it? And Waller's going, yeah, it's completely ridiculous. Oh, but on the other hand, you know, blimey, this could be the trigger. This could be the one where suddenly I get the whole international community on my back, and I really don't want that. So, you know, they chatted about it for half an hour, and it's like, fine, boys, stand down. Massacre averted. Okay. So that, I'm not sure, look, is that the perfect answer? Is it the textbook answer? I don't know. I have no idea. But it worked. That young officer saved hundreds of lives that morning. Okay, hundreds of lives. So that's the power of influence. That's the power of influence. Okay. How do you influence people? I'm sorry, I went massively forwards on that. Let's go back to the flattery bit. Okay, there we go. Whoops. We should be back at flattery. I have no idea why we're not. Whoops. This is very exciting. We're on trust. Let's go forwards. I like that. That's a good slide. There we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. There we go. The art of flattery, I hope. Lusinga. Is that flattery? Okay, right. So, there are some tips. I'm not going to go through them all. There is actually one very simple message in all of this. If you want to flatter someone, what's the easiest way to do it? Is that? Listen. So, what is it that the best salespeople and the best leaders and the best influencers have in common? This is a test for you all. I'm going to see how many people here have what it takes to be a really good leader. This is it, your moment of truth. Have you got it or not? It's very simple. Okay. So the best leaders, the best salespeople, the best influencers have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Okay. How are we doing? Good. You've all got it. Excellent. Oh, and they use them in that proportion. Okay? They listen twice as much as they speak. So we all think of the great salesperson or the great CEO as the person who speaks and is transformational and motivates. No. The very best people don't speak a lot, they listen a lot. Why do they listen a lot? Because the more you listen, the more you understand. Let me give you a couple of examples. So, and this is influence in action, okay? This is about influencing a decision. So, we were in a room of very bright people. And there was a contentious decision. And everyone was arguing like crazy. It was a bloodbath. I can't even remember what the decision was. All I remember is that it was ugly, ugly, ugly. But there was one person in the room who was actually the brightest person in the whole room. And he didn't say anything. He said nothing. And after about 90 minutes of this bloodbath, this intellectual bloodbath, we'd kind of beaten ourselves to a standstill. I remember, his name was Francis. And he coughed quietly. He said, well, look, would it help if I tried to summarize where we've got to? We went, oh yeah, a summary would be quite helpful. So he then said, well, it's quite interesting because Dominic made this very good point, which I hadn't thought about. And you can see Dominic go, yes, well, actually, it was a very good point I made. And he goes, oh, Francis is very smart. Then he turned to me and said, Joe, yeah, that point you made about whatever it was, I can't remember, that was a great point because that's, that makes all the difference. I went, yep. Yes, I did make a good point, didn't I? Yeah, this Francis person is very clever. And he went round the table, picking up all the best points that each person had made, but selectively, because he was picking up the points that each person had made that were supporting his position. Now, of course, when someone says that you have a good idea, do you agree with them or disagree with them? Do you think they're smart or do you think they're stupid? Right? You agree with them, you think they're smart. So by the time he'd finished his summary, he had 8 people round the table who all thought he was smart and who all agreed with him. And at the end of it, he'd got his way. He got exactly what he wanted. Why? Because he'd listened very, very closely to what we were all saying. He summarized back to us points that we valued, and he put it into a context which made sense for him. Okay, the power of listening. Another example. I was a partner, and we were working with a huge multinational. And one of my fellow partners had the kind of charisma of an amoeba and the sort of inspiration of a damp sponge. She was awful. One day, I saw her go into a meeting with one of the most senior clients at 9 o'clock in the morning. I passed by, 11 o'clock, she was still there. 1 o'clock, still there. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she was still there. At 5:30 in the evening, this senior client came out very happy. He took me to one side and said, "You'll not guess what I've done." I said, "No, what have you done?" I thought, perhaps you managed to kill her. It'd be good, it was great. He said, "I've done something really good. I've managed to persuade your partner to take on this challenge that I've been working on for ages. It's going to take about 3 years to work through this challenge, but she's agreed to take it on and resolve it with us." I went, "She's just sold 3 years worth of huge work. How did she do that?" So I talked to her. "How did you do it?" She said, "It was easy. I just listened. I just listened and asked questions. And I kept on listening. And I kept on asking questions until he had emptied himself of all his thoughts, of all his hopes, of all his dreams, of all his fears. So by the end of it, I knew exactly what he wanted, what he feared, what he hoped, what his dreams were. And once he was empty, then I could fill him with my thoughts. And of course, he agreed. That's what it takes. Just listen. Just listen. It's flattering. It's powerful. Okay. So, flattery is one thing, but we've then got to move on. How do we motivate people as well? What motivates people? What motivates people? Okay. Actually, what motivates you? 3 minutes. What motivates you? Discuss. 3 minutes, and we'll come back. Small groups. One minute. Okay, let's see where we've got to. Thank you very much. We're now going to do a bit of a sprint towards the finish. Okay, so let's just see if there are any quick ideas on this. Any quick ideas? Any volunteers? Yes, one at the front here. Microphones, yes. Anyone else while we're waiting? Okay, and one at the back there, if the microphone can get over there, please. Several at the back, yes, please, sir.
Io credo che le persone siano motivate da due cose diverse. Una è il vantaggio o un obiettivo da raggiungere, oppure la paura o la perdita.
Absolutely. Perfect.
One book.
Oh, one book. Good, there we go. One book. Excellent, well done. Thank you. Keep me honest. Right. So we're motivated by something we want and by fear of loss. Absolutely critical. Okay, more? Couple at the back there. Yep. Sorry, yes, sir.
L'emozione che proveremo nel momento che raggiungiamo l'obiettivo. Questo ci può motivare.
Yeah. So, of course, so there is nothing better than feeling that we have a worthwhile goal to achieve. Okay, a couple more. We'll go quickly around. Yep, please.
Una visione chiara e la gratificazione di chi ti fa sentire importante.
Yep. So, getting recognition. Fantastic. More up there. Sorry, this is good. Yes, please.
Ok, noi eravamo tutti e tre d'accordo. Provare gioia in quello che si fa, dare un senso a ciò che si fa, ossia farlo per uno scopo che non sia solo quello, e soprattutto vedere la ricaduta positiva, i risultati positivi non solo su noi stessi, ma sull'ambiente che ci circonda. E su questo eravamo d'accordo tutti e tre.
Yep. Great. So having meaning, having purpose. One more and then we'll move on. Yep.
Chiarezza dell'obiettivo, essere ascoltati, avere voce in capitolo. Una sfida interessante con competenze usate al massimo. Riconoscimento del valore del lavoro e delle idee.
Fantastic. Okay, so there are some absolutely consistent themes coming out here. Clear, worthwhile mission, getting recognition, being listened to. So we know what motivates us. So let's do it for everybody else. Let's make sure we're giving people meaningful goals. Let's make sure we are listening to them. Let's make sure we are recognizing them. We know what motivates ourselves. Let's do the same to other people, okay? And of course, the theory catches up with reality. This is the theory. You all know it. This is Maslow. It's incredibly complicated. I'm not going to take you through it. In fact, I'm going to make it simple for everyone because we're leaders. We're not psychiatrists. We can't go around asking people if they're at the love stage of motivation. That could get misinterpreted, okay? So let's make it simple, okay? And you've come up with the answers. This is what Maslow says. We're all needs junkies. We're all needs junkies. There's always something that we want or need, okay? But equally, remember I said I want to be an astronaut and prime minister and soccer star, all those good things. So what stops us doing these things? Well, I think the answer came through when we were looking. Is it working at all? All right. All right, we're changing the microphone. This is a very exciting moment. Hey! it work? Okay. Yes, it works. All right, look. They're fantastic. Big round of applause. Unseen to all of us, there's been this fantastic team working in the background to make the whole thing work. They've been working miracles. I'm hugely grateful to them. The fact that it's worked so well so far is down to them. I think a big round of applause for all of those people who have made it possible. So well done to them. Fantastic. And I won't do the striptease, so there we go. Right. So we all have needs junkies, and I had a deep need there for a new microphone, and it was great. It got fulfilled. So what stops us getting there? Well, the video we saw before this session gave us a good clue about what stops us getting there. Getting to these hopes and dreams is seriously hard work. Yes, of course, we'd like to be successful, but in the way that a 5-year-old wants to be successful. Yeah, are we prepared to make the sacrifices? And the answer is that, for most of us, there are a lot of things that hold us back, and these are the things that hold us back. Fear, risk, and frankly, idleness. We've got other things to do with our lives. So that's the world of motivation. Okay? You can work on people's hopes and needs, or you can work on their fears. Reduce fear, reduce idleness, and reduce the risk for them. Okay, we talked about influencing people. Let me talk briefly about influencing decisions. In fact, a quick quiz here, a quiz moment. Right, so the distance between our sun and its nearest neighbor, Alpha Centauri. So, our sun and the next sun. Is the distance more or less than 10,000 million kilometers? 10,000 million kilometers. All of those who think it is more than 10,000 million kilometers between our star and its nearest neighbor. Who thinks it's more than that? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, a few. Who thinks it's less than that? Okay, couple. Right. All right, I'm going to force this. You've either got, I want to see your hands go up either for it being more or for less. Okay. Who thinks it's more than 10,000 million kilometers? Hands up. Okay, about half. No, a bit less than half. Okay, who thinks it is less than 10,000 million kilometers? Right, a good number. Okay. Anyone think it's more than 20,000 million kilometers? Okay. A couple, right. Okay. In fact, the answer is it's 45,000 million kilometers away. Okay? Not 10 billion, 45,000 million. Okay. So I've just done a little example of influencing decisions. Fortunately, there is a science to this. Daniel Kahneman has been very good at documenting this. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And that was the first principle. If you want to influence a decision, anchor the debate on your terms. So I was anchoring the debate around 10 billion, not 45,000 million. That's kind of stupid and irrelevant thing to do, but it's an example, okay? Frame the decision. Frame the decision around not your priorities, but about what counts to them. So remember, again, that wonderful secret agent and the warlord, he wasn't on his agenda, he worked on the warlord's agenda. Okay. Third, loss aversion. People are very risk averse. A lot of you have mentioned this today. Loss aversion. We don't like to lose stuff, so again, what you can do in framing a decision, always make sure you size the prize. What is the benefits of making this decision? And then hold that prize in front of people. It's like, what if you don't make that decision, you won't get this reward? Oh, okay. Right. Social proof. Ah, social proof. It's lovely. If Tiger Woods uses those golf clubs, then maybe I should use those golf clubs and I can become as good as Tiger Woods, or whoever the big golfer is nowadays. I'm not into golf. Or maybe if Lionel Messi, uses those football boots and I wear those football boots, I'll become as good as Lionel Messi. I won't, but there's the dream. So social proof. If it's good enough for them, it must be good enough for me. How do you use that in your business? Because probably Tiger Woods and Lionel Messi doesn't work in your accounts department, I would imagine. Okay. Use social proof by getting key people and key influencers to support your idea. Not all of your idea, just one bit of it. Just get them to support one bit which is relevant to them. Repetition. Every advertiser knows this. You repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat the message time and time again. Politicians do it as well. Okay. Finally, restricted choice. Don't give people too many choices. It confuses people. It confuses them. I was taught this actually by my aunt. I was so lucky. I had an aunt who owned a sweet shop. Now, when you're that old, that is heaven. And whenever I went to visit my aunt, she would let me pick some sweets. Heaven. Okay. To start with, she was very clever. She said, you can either have this sweet or that sweet. And it'd be pretty simple. I'd go, well, that one, because that one's kind of disgusting, so that's easy. I'll have that sweet. Easy. But then one day she decided to be kind to me. She said, you can have any sweet you want in the sweet shop. Disaster. Meltdown. I wanted the best sweet, but which is the best one in the whole sweet shop? And the moment I'd picked one, I knew there were at least 10 others that I probably wanted instead. So if you give people too much choice, it's a disaster. Make it very simple. Restricted choice. Okay. And emotional credibility. What do we mean by that? We see this in politics, sadly, nowadays. That we live in a post-factual world. People don't believe facts. They don't believe experts. It's a nightmare. They believe what they want to believe. Okay. This is the emotional credibility bit of it. So, for instance, we can think that if I'm in employment, then clearly the economy is good. That's fine. I don't believe what the papers are saying. I'm employed, I'm happy, things are good. If my neighbor gets unemployed, then I go, maybe there's a problem. Maybe there is a bit of a recession going on, regardless of what's happening in the newspapers. If I become unemployed, there's not a recession going on. This is a major depression, and it's time the government took action. Okay? Emotional credibility. How close is this to us? So how do we make emotional credibility relevant in the world of business? Let me give you an example. I was working with a water utility, and its service was terrible. And we produced reams and reams of market research which showed that their service was terrible. They didn't care, because it was just numbers on a bit of paper. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? An average of 3.2 out of 5, that's not too bad. Actually, it's terrible. Okay. So I thought, how do we persuade these people that their service is not good enough? So one day we found a widow who, we happened across a widow who had had a burst main near her, and her house was getting flooded, and she was trying to get support from the water company. There was no support, they were being ignored, and we just took a film of this. we took a film of this widow trying to cope. At the next board meeting, we sat down with the board, played the video. By the end of it, the CEO said, that's it, we've got to sort it out. End of story. Okay? Emotional credibility. Now, statistically, that story of the widow was kind of irrelevant. It's one case out of 10 million. But suddenly it had a power which numbers don't have. So find a way of making your case which does all of these things. Anchor the discussion in your favor. Frame it. Social proof, repetition. Keep on hammering at your argument. Make the choice simple. And make it emotionally irrelevant. Be creative. This is more than an intellectual world that we're in. We're into an emotional and political world as well. Okay. Right. So, we talked about influencing decisions, and finally, right. Sorry, we're going to go back one to build. How do you become influential? How do you become influential? I've given you some clues there, but I'm going to simplify it down to just 2 ideas. 2 ideas. If you want to be influential, the starting point is a big idea. This goes right back to what we've been saying throughout this morning. A big idea, the high aspiration, the mission, how you as a leader are going to make a difference. And a big idea is better than a small idea. Why is a big idea better? Because a big idea excites people. You can get support for a big idea. A small idea, I mean, who cares, right? That's your problem, right? Find something exciting. Let me give you an example. One day I woke up in the morning and I decided I wanted to start a bank. Why not? Okay, it was a good idea. I looked at most banks in the corporate banking market, and they were useless. They charged far too much. They gave useless service. They hadn't had any innovation, and they made huge amounts of money. So if you're a regulator, you think that's a disaster. If you're an entrepreneur, you think that's wonderful. I only have to be slightly less greedy and slightly less incompetent, and we can make lots of money. So I thought, fine, let's start a bank. And then I realized that to start a bank, you need about $1 billion. So I went down and I checked my bank account to see how much money I'd got. I was roughly $1 billion short. In fact, probably a bit more than $1 billion short because I was overdrawn. So I thought, fine, what do I do? Well, you start getting on the phone and you start building support. And the odd thing is this. When you have a big idea, suddenly people start getting attracted to it. And I was just a person on the street. I didn't have any banking experience. I had no authority. I was just a person on the street. But suddenly people started gathering round. And I gathered a team. And eventually I found myself with the chief executive of an existing bank. Because I wanted to do it in partnership. How do you raise a bank? How do you raise $1 billion? You go to a bank. So I went to the chief executive. And I knew it was an important meeting because we weren't sitting at the table. We were sitting in those low sofas, sort of the casual sofas. And eventually he turns to me and says, so how much is this going to cost, he says. And I said, well, it's going to be about $1 billion, but it's all success capital. It's all regulatory capital. And he says, $1 billion, is that dollars or pounds? Well, I've been calculating in dollars, so what do I say? I said pounds, because that gives me a bit more money. He didn't blink an eyelid, and he said, good. He said, if you'd asked for any less, you wouldn't be serious. So big ideas actually engage people properly. Dare to be ambitious. Right. So first thing is big idea. That builds support, attracts talent. It also allows you to know which battles you've got to fight. You only fight the really important battles then. You don't waste your time on the small battles. The second point, and the lesson I draw again from this story I just told you, is act the part. Act the part. If you want to be influential, then look influential. Act influential. Okay? Whatever level you are. There's a wonderful bit in Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare, where Shakespeare is saying, you know, talking about the Jewish person, does he not bleed like a... If we strike him, does he not bleed? If we make a joke, does he not laugh? Basically, is he not like any other human being? When you think of these very grand and important people that you have to deal with, chief executives and prime ministers and all this sort of stuff, they're human beings. And the reason you're there to see them is because you have something to offer. You have an idea, you have a plan, you have a solution, you have a suggestion. So think of yourself not as some junior person being judged by a senior person. You're their partner. You're their partner. The partnership principle. Okay? Act the part. So those, I'm just making those very, very simple given the time constraints. Okay. So, I'm going to do one real quick thing. I promised to tell you about how do we make change work. This is huge, and I'm going to do a very, very short piece. This is to help you think about, is your firm, is your team, is your organization ready for change? And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at this to see if there are any key questions I should be answering instead. Let me just look at the questions. Is motivation connected with passion? Right, okay. So there are a couple of bits on flattery. Let me answer those, and motivation. Let's go back to the flattery ones, please. Is it better to flatter at the end of a speech or more than one time in the middle? Keep on flattering is my answer. Okay, great. Come on. How to flatter without being considered false? Okay, right. There are so many ways of flattering. The easiest way is just listening. Just listen. Okay? In fact, if you want to do an exercise in flattering, go down to your local coffee shop, wherever. I do this quite often. And I see people gossiping. And normally it's one person doing all the talking and the other person listening. And actually, people love to talk. If you let them talk, they just think you're great. Okay? I told you the story of the saleswoman who got the multinational to buy 3 years' worth of work. She was flattering by listening. So you don't have to be false. And in fact, I'd argue the opposite. Okay? Be authentic about it. The reality is that every single person in this room has some real talents and is really distinctive. I don't know what they are. I have no idea what they are. But everyone you work with has something distinctive and something special. Celebrate that, recognize that. So for instance, I had a terrible boss once. He came from the Museum of Management Malpractice. If you wanted to find out how not to manage and how not to lead, you just look at what he did and document it. He was that bad. But then I thought, hang on, he's my boss. So he must have done something right to become my boss. Right? And in fact, there were some things he did right. He was incredibly structured and disciplined about about work projects. And I hated that because I'm a free spirit, okay? So we didn't get on at all. But he had some strengths. So recognize in other people their strengths and celebrate those, okay? And that's not being false, that's being real. Any other questions we need to pick out there? Sorry, I'm just looking down here because the questions on WhatsApp keep coming up. The definition of confidence in the formula. Right, you saw the trust formula. T equals I times C over R. That C is not confidence, it's credibility. Credibility. Okay? comes from what you do, Popularity leads to weakness. Right. Popularity and a world of social media, okay, where we are ruled by the world of likes and thumbs up and all that sort of stuff. Look, if your goal is to be liked on Facebook, good luck to you, right? Go and get your popularity on Facebook. That is not leadership, okay? Popularity is the road to weakness as leaders. Right? Popularity is popularity. If you want to be popular, that's fine in the social environment. Leadership, the currency of leadership isn't popularity, it's trust and respect. Those are the currencies that will not get debased. And those are the currencies that will be the investment for your future. Okay. We'll take one more question. Right, here's the question. It's a random one. Today you told us about a woman that had no mercy in firing her friend because the children come first. How to deal with friendship and popularity that you said are weakness. This is where we get to the dark side of leadership, okay? If you really believe in your mission, if you have a mission which is worthwhile, you will make personal sacrifices and you will do things that are deeply uncomfortable. Right? Because the reality is we always have choices, and sometimes those choices are very, very uncomfortable. But the strong leader is prepared to make those choices. And ultimately, those choices are ones which will gain you respect and help you achieve your mission. Because that is what we have to do. So, let's take stock. We've been on quite a journey today, and I just want to thank you all for being part of that journey and going on that journey with me. This morning, the essence of leadership, followed by the secret source of leadership, and now the new world of leadership, the new challenge. How do we lead when we don't have power? How do we build influence, trust, respect? And what we've learned in this is that we're all on different journeys because we all have different contexts, we all have different challenges, we all have different strengths, we all have different needs and different opportunities. And we know that that's going to keep on changing in the future as well. So these are all fantastic journeys that we're on. And we're all about to go on our different journeys this week and next week. But there's one thing I want to leave you with. Whatever your journey is, enjoy it. Thank you very much.